radicalization in the American Muslim community, radicalization in the American Muslim community.
But in view of Mr. Welch's request that the information be given once we know of anyone who might be performing any work for the Communist Party.
When you hear yourself being compared to Joe McCarthy, does that make you recoil? Does it make you think, maybe I should have come at this from a different direction?
No, when I see the people who are attacking me, I'm gratified. When I have the New York Times attacking me in an editorial, I know I'm doing the right thing. When I have all these left-wing groups attacking me, I feel I'm doing the right thing.
It doesn't trouble you at all?
Absolutely not. To me, it's a badge of honor to be attacked by the likes of these people.
Unfortunately, we have too many mosques in this country. There's too many people who are sympathetic to radical Islam. We should be looking at them more carefully. I think there's been a lack of full cooperation from too many people in the Muslim community, and there's a real threat here in this country.
This guy's got a history of vilifying Muslim Americans, and now he wants to do it in front of the United States Congress.
That just sounds like kind of blanket guilt here. There's there's something in the Muslim community that's threatening us.
So you don't have to be guilty of anything. If you're just a Muslim in America, he's going to start an investigation of you just to see if you are radicalized.
Congressman King was a well-known supporter of the Irish Republican Army, which is estimated to have killed 600 civilians during its campaign to drive the British out of Northern Ireland. A recent Washington Post article detailed Congressman King's long, close relationship with the IRA in the 1980s and 90s. King called the IRA, quote, a legitimate force. He was, in fact, reportedly speaking as speaker at the events for NORAID, the IRA's fundraising wing. And an Irish judge once threw King out of a courtroom, saying he was, quote, as you just saw there, an obvious collaborator with the IRA.
So let me get this right. It's okay if you do terrorism as long as it's not against us? So killing civilians is acceptable as long as they're the right kind of civilians? What if Hamas killed innocent Israeli civilians? Would that be acceptable? But you might say, hey, wait a minute, Israel is an ally. But you know who else is an ally? The United Kingdom.
Today's hearing will be the first in a series of hearings dealing with the critical issue of the radicalization of Muslim Americans. I am well aware that the announcement of these hearings has generated considerable controversy and opposition. Some of this opposition, such as my colleague and friends Mr. Ellis and Ms. Pascrell, has been measured and thoughtful. Other opposition, both from special interest groups and the media, has ranged from disbelief to paroxysms of rage and hysteria. Let me make it clear today that I remain convinced that these hearings must go forward, and they will.
There's the title of this hearing. Correct, Mr. Chairman? Muslim, well, it says it. That's what we're talking about. But the extremes, many times, are in the eyes of the beholder.
I vehemently oppose the narrow approach this committee is taking in this hearing. I was born in the 1960s. In my elementary history classes, I saw shocking films of American leaders in the 40s and the 50s disgracefully violating the principles of which this country was founded. The only difference history will say today is that those shows were in black and white, and this one now is in color.
Muslim Americans are honorable citizens, loyal Americans, and they're as much distressed as we are about what it is we see going on.
We have established strong bonds through continuing outreach and physical presence at important events to every community. Therefore, I would caution that to comment only on the extent of radicalization in the Muslim American community may be viewed as singling out a particular section of our nation. This makes a false assumption that any particular religion or group is more prone to radicalization than others. For example, according to information provided by the Congressional Research Service, there have been 77 total terror plots by domestic non-Muslim perpetrators since 9/11. In comparison, there have been 41 total plots by both domestic and international Muslim perpetrators during the same period. Reports indicate that Muslim Americans helped foil 7 of the last 10 plots propagated by al-Qaeda within the United States. Evidence clearly indicates a general rise of violent extremism across ideologies. Therefore, we should be examining radicalization as an issue that affects all groups, regardless of religion.
So my question is, sir, basically you're dealing with a terrorist organization. And I'm trying to get you to try to understand that they might be using you, sir, to implement their goals.
Well, thank you for asking me that question, but it sounds more like a possible accusation of me being misused by an organization that, quite frankly, let me just answer you this way. I'm an elected official, as you are. Right. If the FBI has something to charge CAIR with, bring those charges forward and try them in court and deal with it that way. There is a reality that in my culture as a police officer, that you have facts and you have a crime. Deal with it. We don't play around with criminals in my world. If CAIR is an organization that's a, quote, criminal organization, prosecute them. Hold them accountable, and bring them to trial.
My time is limited, sir. Are you saying that the FBI was wrong in identifying that CAIR is part of Hamas, an entity of Hamas?
Let me say this. You don't want to cause a conflict between me and the FBI.
I'm just asking.
We work together better than perhaps this committee works together.
Today my question is to Mr. Jazzer. In your testimony, you say too many so-called Muslim leadership groups in America, like CAIR or Muslim advocates, have specifically told Muslims across the nation, for example, not to speak to the FBI or law enforcement unless they're accompanied by an attorney. Now, the right to have an attorney present when speaking to law enforcement is a specific principle of American civil liberties. So, as a minority, I would advocate to people, in particular minorities, that they should have their attorney present when being investigated, talked to, spoken to, addressed by the FBI. So by what legal principle do you assert that any minority in America should waive that American principle?
Congresswoman Sanchez, I don't disagree with you. I'm talking about this as a father. When I walked up to a police officer or the FBI, I teach my children that they're your friends, that you can talk to them. If they ask you things, they're not going to be attacking you.
But if they come to your home at night, like they do in my community, like some come to my community and knock at 8 p.m. at night to ask questions, if it were you on the other side of the door, not knowing what questions they were going to ask, would you not say, can you come back tomorrow to my office, my business office? Would you not say, let me call my attorney and I'll come meet you down at the FBI office? Or would you say, sure, come on in, I'll answer any question?
It depends on the circumstances, and I don't disagree with you.
You don't understand the circumstances when somebody comes to your office late at night like that. You would assert the privilege of an attorney, would you not?
Congresswoman, not all the time, no, I would not. I'm not constantly under fear from the government because I have nothing to hide.
Cleaning a dirty kitchen You can't clean it with dirty water. There are no redeeming factual information that we will receive today that can add to the abhorrence that all of us have on terrorism in the United States of America. We don't disrespect the witnesses, at least I do not. But you see, it has already been tainted, this hearing. There are no loud signs of reasoning that are coming through this hearing. The reason is because it has already been classified as an effort to demonize and to castigate a whole broad base of human beings. I cannot stand for that.
Let me close with a true story, but remember that it's only one of many American stories that could be told. Mohammed Salman Hamdani was a 23-year-old paramedic, a New York City police cadet, and Muslim American. He was one of those brave first responders who tragically lost his life in 9/11 terrorist attacks almost a decade ago. As the New York Times eulogized, he wanted to be seen as an all-American kid. He wore number 79 on the high school football team at Bayside, Queens, where he lived. He was called Sal by his friends. He became a research assistant at the Rockefeller University and drove an ambulance part-time. One Christmas, he sang Handel's Messiah in Queens. He saw all of the Star Wars movies, and it's well known that his new Honda was the one that read with the Young Jedi license plates. Mr. Hamdani bravely sacrificed his life to try to help others on 9/11. After the tragedy, some people tried to smear his character solely because of his Islamic faith. Some people spread false rumors and speculated that he was in league with the attackers because he was a Muslim. But it was only when his remains were identified that these lies were exposed. Mohammed Salman Hamdani was a fellow American who gave his life for other Americans. His life should not be identified as just a member of an ethnic group or just a member of a religion, but as an American who gave everything for his fellow Americans.
There is nothing radical or un-American in holding these hearings.
No one familiar with the history of his country can deny that congressional committees are useful. It is necessary to investigate before legislating. But the line between investigating and persecuting is a very fine one. We must not confuse dissent with disloyalty. We must remember always that accusation is not proof, and that conviction depends upon evidence and due process of law. We will not walk in fear one of another. We will not be driven by fear into an age of unreason if we dig deep in our history and our doctrine and remember that we are not descended from fearful men. We proclaim ourselves, as indeed we are, the defenders of freedom wherever it continues to exist in the world. But we cannot defend freedom abroad by deserting it at home.